Hey, good evening, and welcome to an evening edition of Breakthrough Walls. I'm going to have my brother from another mother, Doug Wing, on here in just a second. So do me a favor, stop everything you're doing and share this puppy out to everybody you know. Let's get a bunch of people on here. We got some exciting stuff to talk about. I'll be right back with the one, the only Mr. Doug Wing. Okay, I'm back. Let me bring Doug on. Doug, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, Ken. How are you doing?
Dude, if I was any better, I would change my name to Doug Wing.
That's funny. It's been a while since we've done something like this.
I know, man. I know. It's exciting, though, because you've got a new book coming out in March.
Hmm.
We're going to do a little bit of talking about what we have so far and what people have to look forward to. But I want to take a quick little walk down memory lane with you real fast. And I want to put this up.
Oh,
Oh, you know what? Nobody will be able to hear us if I put that up that way. That's okay. That's okay. I have a quick solution. So hang on.
all right.
So there's Doug and I at the Little Giant Ladder Systems factory. That was a fun day, dude.
Yeah, that was a good time. That was when we did the book release for The Giver, right? I think, or was it?
No, actually, that was
It was
for
that's
Giant Success.
yeah, that's right, because they both
Yeah.
came out the same year. Yeah.
Yeah, so Doug did a book, wrote a book, and my wife helped with it, and I helped, and he hired us to come out to Utah to do a big book release launch party, and that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did
And
it in the hometown and
yeah,
the library there in Springville, Utah. That was
yeah.
that was a cool night. Yeah.
And you gave us the 3 hour tour at Gilligan's Island of the Little Giant Ladder manufacturing facility. Dude, that place is insane. How many square feet is it under one roof?
It's about 450,000, I think, something like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the company obviously has changed because it's been
Yeah,
sold. It's not the same
yeah.
company, but it was a place I worked for over 45 years. The same place my whole life. Yeah, wonderful.
Well, and for those of you watching that don't know, Doug's father, Hal Wing, is the founder of the Little Giant Ladder Company. And boy, there are some unbelievable stories about that man and all of his adventures and his um, what are the words? He was just one of the most loving, giving people in the world that I've ever heard of. I mean, um, you know, there are people that go to church on Sunday and then they act like an idiot the rest of the week. And that was not your father. I mean, he may have acted like a crazy man from time to time, but he literally lived. He was like living the life of Christ.
Yeah, he was incredible person for sure. Great dad to grow up with. As you mentioned, he was lived life in the fast lane with cars and motorcycles and boats, and but he was definitely a giver. A big time giver, and supported so many people and helped people and built people too.
He
As a boss,
really, yeah.
as an owner of the company, entrepreneur, he was great. he really built people, and then people, helped him build the company, this amazing company. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we did a second book called The Giver, because I still had more stories from my after Giant success. It was really about the company and how he started it,
Yeah.
and how he made it successful. And then I wrote, we did The Giver, which is a fiction book with Mark Victor Hansen's company,
Yeah.
but the stories in that one they're all true, and we just changed it into fictional characters. Now the new book is also going to be. I had more stories to tell, and so I was like, okay, we'll do another book.
You
Uh,
know, some of the things that you've some of the stories that you've told, for those watching, everybody wants to, there's an old saying, a friend of mine used to say, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Right. So, but your dad was literally the, and he taught you this, and you and I are, you're one of my best friends in the world, and I think that I've gotten to know you over the years now. Like, what is it, 3, 4? I don't even know how many years we know.
I
Maybe
think it's more than that, probably.
4.
Maybe it's, yeah, probably 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. But I've gotten to know you really, really well, and you're just like your dad in the sense of being a giver and helping people, and it's just amazing to me. But there's the story that, and uh it's in this book, the Giant Success book, of your dad. He had somebody that would ride around with him, and he stopped. I just remember this one story. He was going, like, driving through a neighborhood, and he saw a house, and he stopped and told the guy in the truck, "Go give this envelope filled with thousands of dollars in cash. Go give this to the people at the door, knock on the door and give it to them, and I want to be anonymous. I don't want them to know it came from me, because their roof needs replaced."
Hmm.
And right, and that's just how he was. Like, dude, and, like, people want to know what the secret to success is in life, and I truly think that it comes from having that giving heart, that loving humanity heart, which is who your dad was. He didn't say go up and make sure they're not a Muslim first, or he didn't. That was not his modus operandi. He didn't care. Just like, let's go help people.
Yeah, yeah. I think he really did look for people, daily, or, I think he just looked, he had eyes to see, and he noticed things like that where most people don't. They just get busy, and we all get busy doing,
Yeah,
life. But I do think that he looked for people to help, each day and each week, and he found them. And so as we go through life, sometimes we get busy with our families, with our work, with church, with, hobbies and things like that. But
yeah,
but he was really looking out, many times throughout his, I mean, hundreds of times or more, for people to
yeah.
help, and he ended up doing it. So and
and
so
and, and the stories, because that the first book, Giant Success, is filled with stories of how he started the company, and how he drove literally around the United States in the back of a station wagon, sleeping on top of ladders in the back of his station wagon, trying to sell ladders. Now, for those of you watching, Little Giant Ladders is now the third largest ladder company in the world, doing what, 3 or 400 million a year. I mean, it's crazy, dude.
yeah, or maybe more now, since they are
Wow.
owned by private equity. I'm not sure, because I haven't been there for several years. But yeah, they're climbing and doing great. I mean, but yeah, he started out with nothing, and this next book I'm doing. Um, so in the second book, it was about John Ward and his son Spencer Ward. And in this next book, it'll be his brother, which will be Evan Ward. So it's in the same family, and the stories will be from my father and my mother, and most of them are real stories. Yeah, I mean, there's a few that I kind of thought about on my own, kind of some really cool stories. But I would say 90% of the stories in this book, again, are from my life. And the
Wow.
very first story in the book, how the book starts out is that, and I know you know about this story, but my parents were about 26 years old, and my uncle, my dad's brother, died. Now think about this for a second. So I did the math with my sister helped me on this first part of the book. So you figure my parents were about 25, 26 years old, and we had four children in our family already. So my brother was, I'm trying to do the math here. My brother was five, I was three, my sister was two, my other sister was one. Now think about that: five, three, two, and one. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, crazy, right? And my
Yep.
parents were so young. But my uncle passed away, was killed in an accident at work, and their mother, these my cousins' mother, just left, abandoned them. And so my parents got a call from social services and said, "Hey, will you take these kids? If you don't
Yeah.
take them, we're gonna adopt. We're gonna send them out for adoption." So my brother, my cousin, the first cousin, and his sister were 5 years old, and the oldest one was six. So now you have a 6 year old, three 5 year olds, and a three and a two and a 1 year old. With and at that time, my dad was working two jobs and going to college.
So
And
he wasn't even didn't even have the ladder company yet?
no, no, he was going to be an
Wow.
engineer, and
Wow.
so my dad was working two jobs, going to college, and my dad told this story, a really incredible story, how he actually quit college, because my mom and my dad, one of the jobs that they had was at night they would clean an office building. Now today you would get really in trouble doing this, but my parents would actually leave all of us kids at home asleep. I know this is really hard to believe, but my parents were good people.
Yeah.
And then they would go clean this office building and then come back. It took them, I don't know how long, several hours, probably 3 or 4 hours to do this while we were asleep. And one night,
Wow.
early in the morning, my dad and mom came driving down the street, and my little sister, Tina, was running up and down the street crying, looking for my mom and dad.
Oh my God.
Can you believe that? Anybody could have picked her up. She could have got run over, whatever. So my mom and dad obviously quit that job. My dad quit school, and
Right.
but that's a true story. So here's my
Wow.
parents with seven kids, and they're all under the age of 10. And
Jeez.
so my dad always said he had to be successful. He totally had to be successful. So he went into sales, selling insurance, and then that's how we moved to Germany, and that's how my dad saw the original ladder and started the ladder company. So
So
that's
people don't know that story that are watching. We have right now, and if you're watching, feel free to comment. If you have questions for Doug, just put them in the comments. We have 170 people watching on X right now. It's
that's
crazy, dude.
that's really cool. Yeah.
I've
So
got some really cool friends on X, so thank you guys for sharing this, and thank you to anybody who shares this. It's you're amazing. Thank you. But talk about the the story behind Little Giant Ladders. How your dad ran into that dude and like it's just one of those magical things, man. Like it's
oh,
crazy.
the German guy that invented it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So my dad was selling life insurance in Germany. That's where my mom was from, and there was another guy from Salt Lake that was selling insurance. My dad's partner, they were partners in the firm, and he saw the original Little Giant Ladder that was designed by a German house painter. And he said to my dad, he got all excited, and he's like, "Hey, Al, we need, I want to show you this ladder." My dad's like, "A ladder?" He said, "Yeah, it's so cool." And my dad's like, "Richard, we are selling life insurance. I do not have time to see a ladder." Just
Right.
kept bugging him, bothering him. And so finally my dad went and saw the ladder, and he's like, "Wow, this thing is way cool." And he met the gentleman. They became friends, and anyway, he went home to my mom and said, "Hey, I want to quit my job as a salesman now. With 7 kids, and I want to take these ladders and buy containers of them and ship them to America and sell ladders." And my mom's like, "Holy cow, you're like one of the best life insurance salesmen, in the
Right.
company." And he's like, "I know I can do this. I know we can make it." And she said, "I believe in you 100%. You've never let us go hungry." And that's how it all started.
That's insane, dude. Like I can relate to that entrepreneurial spirit because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. But man, when you're talking about how many kids? 7 kids?
9, you're feeding. Yeah, you got, well,
9 people.
yeah, you're responsible for 9, including yourself. So,
And
and
you've never sold a ladder one day in your life, and
yeah,
all of a sudden you're gonna start selling buy a bunch of ladders and then go, that's crazy, dude.
yeah. And you remember that story where my dad got back to, he brought one back with him to America, and he went and showed it all his friends and different businesses, and everybody
Yes.
said, "Yes, we'll buy it." And so he wrote, here's the thing where he said he learned his first mistake was he didn't take the money, or write the order.
Yeah.
He just had a list of paper. Okay, Justin Jones will buy one, and XYZ
Yeah.
Corporation. So
Right.
he has like a whole container pre-sold, and then he gets the container in. He said he went to every one of those people and companies, and they all like, "I just lost my job. I'd fallen on hard times," and so he had all those ladders, and he had to go out and sell them one at a time. So,
That's
yeah,
unbelievable.
nobody kept their word on the orders. So,
Gotta get that money down, man.
yep,
Gotta get the
yeah.
money down.
So,
Wow. But again, for anybody watching that, you know, uh, when you have enough motivation and a dream, and that's what he had. I don't know that he ever really probably had a like, man, I'm gonna be the number one ladder company in the world. I don't know. Maybe that eventually turned into that, but I mean, you're starting out. You're like, I was just selling life insurance, and now I'm gonna sell something where people may use it and need to use their life insurance. No.
yeah, originally my dad just said he started the business so that he could work with his sons. So that was really his motivation, to work with
Yeah,
his sons. And then, the story of my dad goes around and starts doing trade shows. And one of the first two people he ever met was Richard and Don Warner from Warner Ladder Company, the largest ladder
yeah,
company in the world at that time.
yeah.
And they laughed at my dad, and they said, "You are a complete fool. We could have had this ladder years ago. You are going to fall flat on your face." And they
Right.
laughed. And he said that was huge motivation right
And
then.
and how many Rolls Royce did your dad have when he died?
Well, he never had Rolls Royces, but he
Oh,
did have some other nice cars, Porsches and
oh, come on.
Bentleys and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, Bentleys and
Yeah,
and
he had
yeah,
about 60 cars, but
60.
60 cars. But the great thing about that story is that that company, those two brothers that said, "You're an idiot.
Yeah,
There's no way you're going to make it." They tried to buy him 3 times,
yeah,
and he would never sell to the Warner Ladder Company.
that's
And
awesome.
yeah, in fact, one of the times they came in and tried to buy my dad, and he had such a quick wit. He they gave him some offer, and he said, "Well, you guys don't really want to buy me. You just want to own me." And
Right.
he was so good, but he wouldn't sell to him. So I ran
So
into
incredible.
ran into those guys several times after my dad had passed away. And actually, Don Warner, I was at a trade show, and he walked up and he said, "Well, don't ever tell anybody this, but I have a little giant at my house." And he said, "But if anybody asks me, I'll deny it." But he said he did.
Right.
So
I mean, they're great ladders. They're unbelievable ladders. Again, and I honestly I want to promote all of your books. I mean, Giant Success, obviously, with my wife and I helping you on that one. That one is close to our heart. That's such a great book.
mhm.
um, and it really does outline what it takes to be successful in business and in life and to live a good life. It really does. It's incredible to go from I had a bunch of orders. I bought a bunch of ladders to fulfill those orders, and they not one of them came through for me. So, and he literally drove around the country in his station wagon selling ladders, man, one at a time. Tell him
Yeah.
about the tell him the story about the police officers.
Oh yeah, they were coming out of a trade show, my dad and another salesman, real late at night, and there were a lot of burglaries and things in LA at that time, and they get pulled over, and the police said, two policemen, a younger one and an older one. The older one said, "What's in your van?" I think by then they had either gone to, yeah, they had switched over to vans by then, and my dad says, "Well, they're my ladders." And he goes, "Well, do you have a receipt for these ladders?" And he's like, "Well, no, they're mine." He goes, "I build them. It's my company." And the policeman said, "If you don't show me some paperwork that says these are your ladders, you're going to have to come down to jail. We're going to have to talk about it." And
Wow.
so the salesman, Clark, said, "Hey, Hal, just show him the ladder." So they get out of the van, they go around to the back, and they pull out a ladder. And Hal does the presentation, the one that you've seen many times. A lot of people have maybe seen it on the infomercial. But
Yeah.
he whips through the ladder. He's going into an A-frame extension ladder, staircase ladder, scaffolding, and then he brings everything back down and folds it up. And the younger policeman looks over at the older one. And he goes, "These have to be his ladders."
Right.
And then, because who's going to be that good at the demonstrations? But then
Right. Right.
Dad said the younger policeman on the side was a painter. He painted houses on the side. And he goes, "I sold him a ladder that night." So he was a very good salesman. Very, very good salesman.
What that's one of my favorite stories too. I mean, my favorite story. I have a hard time telling this story and not getting choked up about it. I know you know what I'm talking about. You've heard me say it's my favorite story a million times, but the guy that was working for some company that ended up in a machine blew up or something, and he lost his leg or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And can you tell that story? I'm sorry to keep giving you full screen. These
Oh,
are
no,
important
no.
stories, but
Yeah,
tell that story.
that's Steve Curtis. I remember you
Yeah.
remember Steve Curtis.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Steve Curtis's wife worked at the bank. She was the bank manager that my dad did his banking at. And when I interviewed Steve for the book, his wife was there, and I said, "Well, tell me the story." And Steve goes, "Well, I was in the hospital once, and your dad visited me." And his wife goes, "That's not the story." She goes, "Let me tell it." So anyway, she tells this story of Steve was working for this company in some kind of a manufacturing facility, and he was working on this machine, and this machine exploded, and it sent shrapnel into his body, like into his chest and into his arms, pieces of shrapnel. But one of the pieces broke off and hit him right below the knee and almost severed his leg completely off. And so he gets rushed to the hospital, and he's in shock, and they're trying to stabilize him, of course, and get him to where he's stable before they can deal with his leg,
Right.
because that was the most serious injury. But Vicky says, "We are in the emergency. We just barely get in the emergency room." And she goes, "I look up and your dad is in the emergency room." And she goes, "I don't know how he knew about this, but he was there." And I said, how did you get in here?" And he goes, "That was easy. I just told the people at the hospital that Steve was my brother." And
Wow.
so, he just worked his way in. And what was really neat about this story is I guess nobody really, they were trying to get him stabilized and his wounds taken care of in the leg, but his face and his arms were just black with soot. I mean, probably, almost as black as my shirt. And so she says, "Your dad just disappears for a minute, and he comes back, and he's got a washcloth with soap and water, and he wipes Steve's face down, his arms down."
Wow.
And he says to him, then he whispers into his ear, "Steve, you really are my brother. And when you get out of here, you are going to come work for me." And he leaves. And so after this happens,
Wow.
incredible, right? I mean,
Son, no, I can't, like, I'm holding back tears. Oh, that story gets me. Go ahead.
yeah, so
Sorry.
after all this happens, of course, Steve's leg has to be amputated. And so he's thinking, I'm done working. I'm going to have to go on disability. And
Mm.
again, here's a great, how does Hal Wing know this, right? But Hal Wing knows the day that Steve gets out of the hospital. And again, his wife says, I'm wheeling Steve into our house in a wheelchair. And the phone rings, and we run over to pick it up. And she goes, guess who was on the phone? Your dad.
Wow.
And she said, Hal comes on, my dad's on the phone. And he says, put Steve on. And he says, Steve, are you ready to come to work for me? And he says, well, I can't work for you, Hal. My leg's been amputated and I won't be able to do anything. I'm probably just going to have to be on disability the rest of my life. And then my dad said to him, you can answer the phone, can't you? And he said, yes. And he said, well, your job's here when you're ready to come back to work. And so Steve went to work for the rest of his career for my dad.
Wow.
And that story you brought up in the very beginning, Steve goes on to say that he became kind of the giver for my dad. In other
Yeah.
words, when he got better, he would
Yeah.
my dad would call him and say, "Steve, I want you to meet me at this house." And he would meet him at the house, and he was waiting there. And he says, your dad pulls up, and he jumped in the car with my dad, and he said, "What do you see about this house, Steve? Look at that house
Yeah.
carefully." And Steve's going, I see a house, and I see, these,
Yeah.
and he doesn't get it. My dad goes, "No, look closer at this house. What do you see?" And he's like, "I don't see anything." And he's like, "Look at that roof, Steve. This guy's roof is like ready to give."
Yeah.
You then go and knock on this guy's door and tell him I'm going to replace his roof. I don't want him to know who I am. So he goes, I'm scared. The first time I do this, he says, I ring the doorbell and the guy comes to the door, and I'm like, I know you're going to think this is strange, but somebody wants to replace your roof. They don't want you to know who it is, but we want to know, do you want the same color shingles? And this, is this okay? And the guy's like, is this a joke? Is this candid camera or what? So anyway, that was the first time that he had ever
It's
done that
crazy.
with my dad. And then he said there was other times that he was called again to do that. I interviewed another person that said that he said he went on, gosh, probably over 40 or 50 times helping people, doing the same thing for my dad. And
I
so,
mean, it's like you said at your dad's funeral that there were thousands of people that showed up, and you and your mom and your brother and your sister stood there and greeted everybody, and people were coming up and telling you the most amazing stories. Like he paid off one lady's house, like just
mhm,
paid off her house. He just he was, and so people in general, I think, not, no, I shouldn't say that, I don't mean it in a bad way, but a lot of people don't understand that when you give like that, it
mhm.
especially when you do it the way your dad did it and the way you do it, is giving without any expectation of return. Like there was no underlying thing that your dad wasn't like, okay, God, I paid off her house, now hook a brother up. He wasn't like that,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that isn't what it was, and that's not the way you are. And I think that if people would understand the premise behind that, and what he did and what you do and what he taught, and I think life could be so much better for people, not worried about me, but how do I help serve others in the world?
Yeah, and so this next book is some stories that I may have shared on some live streams, but I don't think so. These are stories that are new that some of them I learned after my dad died, but we couldn't put them all in the first two books, so we
Right.
have enough that we're going to do. They're really good. I know the one about the jewelry story. That's really
I do. That's such a good story.
Yeah, and that one is again not in any of the first two books, but is really a good one that's going to be in this next book. There's kind of a fun, yeah, there it is. There's kind of a funny one too. I mean, it was kind of funny, but it was kind of scary at the time. Now it's kind of funny, but I think I've told you this story. When I was 16, um, My dad and I went and rode dirt bikes for the day, and we were out in the desert. My dad had a Ford Bronco with a bench seat. And my dad had a lead foot. He was always getting tickets. He was always driving fast. And we had a trailer that we were pulling with our motorcycles. And we're coming back from riding, and we're on a 2-lane road out in the middle of nowhere. And we pass a, excuse me, we pass a county sheriff. We're doing, I can't even remember what the ticket was for, but it was probably 80 or something like that. And here I am,
Yeah.
16, just had my license. And so the policeman, we pass him, and we see him flip around, hit his brakes and flip his lights on. And it took him a few minutes to catch us. So my dad pulls over and he looks at me and he says, if I get one more ticket, I'm going to lose my license. And he said, trade places with me, because it had a straight bench. So I'm like, are you crazy? We're going to go to jail. I'm 16. My dad goes, my dad's just play it cool. There is a good story. There is a good ending to this story. So
Yeah.
my dad, I think I slide up over and he slides back. And then my dad puts his baseball hat on me. And the sheriff walks up and he's like, can I see your license and registration? So I give it to him. And I mean, I'm nervous. I'm 16.
I'll
And
bet you're terrified.
he says, do you know how fast you're going? I said, no. I was like, and he's like, you're going 80 or something like that. And it was like maybe 75 or 80, but it was like a 55 at that time. It was a pretty
Right.
big ticket, right? It was,
Right.
anyway. And so he writes me up the ticket and everything, and he leaves. The policeman leaves, and of course my dad drives. And so we go home and put everything away that night. And I remember it was about bedtime. My dad comes down to my room and he says, "Hey, um, what we did today, what he basically said, what I did today was wrong. It was dishonest, and I
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that. It was a bad example to you." And he goes, "Tomorrow," and this was out in the middle of nowhere where this happened. And he said, "Tomorrow we're going to go see the justice of the peace," because that's what they had in those smaller
Yeah.
towns.
Right. Right.
And it was right inside their houses, right? They had a little sign that said, whatever, justice of the peace. And
Right.
so I said to my dad, "We're both going to jail." I was so afraid. My dad's like, "Just
Oh my
relax.
God.
It's going to be okay. So we drove. It was probably a half an hour away, maybe 45 minutes away. We go over there the next morning. My dad and I go in there, and I mean, I'm just sweating bullets. And my
Right.
yeah, my dad was so genuine. He was so good with people, but he just said, "Hey, this is what happened. I was going to lose my license. I did a
Wow.
dumb thing. I traded places." And I was watching this. This guy was like 70 years old, this older justice of the peace. I'm looking at his eyes. I'm thinking, where's his bat phone, where he's going to call,
Right.
the red,
Right.
come and get these guys and put them
Come
in
and get
jail.
him.
But anyway, so he sits there and listens to the whole story. My dad says, "I messed up. I was totally a bad example to my son. I was wrong." And he leans back in his chair, this old justice of the peace, and he said, "You know, I think you both learned a valuable lesson here. Let's just forget the whole thing."
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, and so you know, my dad was so honest that he couldn't even last for a couple hours that night. And he's like, "We did a bad thing. He did a
Yeah.
bad thing. He did something wrong, and we're going to go talk about it and get it taken care of." And that was one
Totally.
of the things that he always talked about was, he always said, "Don't lie, don't steal, and don't be lazy." And so he
Yeah.
was so good with those things. And he was just incredible. That's one of the stories that'll be in the book. Um,
It's incredible. I don't know if people are commenting or not. We have 287 people watching on X right now. That's
and
crazy.
yeah, I'm on my side. I don't see, it says private chat, but I don't see anything on there.
Yeah,
Maybe
there should be comments too, but I don't see any comments. If anybody's commenting for some reason, I'm not seeing them, so my
that says
apologies.
comments, but I don't see anything either. But
Yeah.
so so anyway, this will be the second fiction but real story book. I'm excited about it. I'm trying to think, Ken, do you remember if it was the first one or the second one? Because they've both been number one bestsellers.
Yeah.
Mm. Do you remember the Ben Stein deal when his book came out? Was that giant success, or was that The Giver? You remember him? He was on.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
contributor on Fox News,
I
and
remember that you were beating him in the
yeah,
in book
he was
sales.
in my category. Remember, he was in Bueller. Remember he when he said he
Oh
was
yeah.
teaching, and he goes Bueller,
Yeah.
Bueller.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't remember which one it was, but it might have been The Giver. but we were in the same category. And
Yeah.
I remember looking, you know how you can look on Amazon in your category under the
Yep.
authors?
Yeah.
And he had a book out that came out and it was in the same category, same time. And I mean, I'd be driving down the road and I'm like, I'm beating Ben Stein. I mean, this is
You're
incredible.
crazy.
He's written several books, but anyway, it was kind of fun to do that.
Yeah. I
And
mean, and these books are now the books that you've done with Mark Victor Hansen. And if anybody doesn't know who Mark Victor Hansen is, first off, he's just incredible. Number one best-selling author in the world of all time with Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he has a publishing company, and I referred Doug over to Mark, and so far Doug has done The Giver, and he's done Giving Hearts, which is the book we're talking about now. That's coming out in March, Giving Hearts, and I believe you have the first 10 or so chapters done, and it
yeah, they're
probably won't be more than what 12 or 13 chapters, I would imagine at the most.
yeah. I was
So,
looking at Giver and how many chapters were in this book really quick. But you know, Heidi, there's 11 chapters, so I think this one
okay.
is going to be. I think there's going to be more than 11 on this one, but
Yeah, yeah,
we have a lot of stories in this one. But you know, even my wife Heidi, who's from the Philippines. In fact, Heidi,
yeah,
are you here? Um,
yeah.
we've been married on December 9th. Ken, it's going to be 1 year.
Wow.
But Heidi said that she had read some Chicken Soup for the Soul books in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
I was just going to see if she was going to pop on. Heidi, are you here? I don't know. Maybe she fell asleep.
She might be here, but she ain't getting on. She's
Might.
like, no.
Well, she was tired, but I said maybe you should pop on. Just, but
Uh,
we've been busy, you know. Just um,
yeah,
with oh, there she is. Heidi, come over if you want to. But she just commented. Do you see that where she says I'm here?
yeah. There it is. There it is.
But
There's Heidi.
I was going to see if she's going to come on and just say hi, but I don't know if she will. But
Yeah,
December 9th is our anniversary. 1 year. Can you believe how fast that went?
that's
Uh,
insane how fast that went, dude. That's my mom's birthday. Did you know that?
December 9th?
Yeah, you didn't know that, did you?
Oh, there she is right
There
there.
she is. Hi, Heidi.
She's being a little shy, but she's so beautiful.
uh,
And she's
so good to see you.
a lot of fun.
Hi, it's good to see you.
She's got a great smile. Yeah, she's good.
Yes, she does.
All right.
She's giving the thumbs up.
See you
That's
later, Heidi.
awesome.
But
Um, so 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 talk about so the first book is The Giver, and then this one is Giving Hearts that comes out in March. Talk
mm,
about I can't believe we have over 300 people watching us live on X right now, dude.
oh,
That's
that's great.
unbelievable.
That's great.
Yeah.
X is
So
doing great.
yeah, X is great now that Elon owns it. But so talk about um the Giving Hearts. You said something about, and I don't know, did you finish that? Because you said one of the opening stories in this, is it about the your cousins? Is that what you were
Yeah.
talking about?
So the opening story, the book, the way the book starts out is that story of my parents being 25, 26 years old with four kids, and again, it's 5, 3, 2, and 1 are the ages, and then they adopt my three cousins, there's two more that were 5. They were twins. So you have a 6 year old, three 5 year olds, a 3 year old, a 2 year old, and a 1 year old. And so that's really the great part of it, how that book opens is, and after my sister helped me with the story, I realized that my dad didn't want to adopt the kids. He was so stressed out, and my mom was the one that said, "We're doing this. We cannot let these
Wow.
kids. We cannot let these kids go to foster care. They've already been through enough, and this is going to just totally devastate them." And so my mom was the one that really pushed to take these kids, and
Wow.
incredible. And then later, you know, my dad's traveling all over the country and she's by herself with no driver's license, Ken, with 7 kids. And I do not know how my mom did it. I just do not know how my mom
Whoa.
ended up doing
Sorry.
this.
I'm
Uh,
sorry. I'm
yeah.
messing the whole scene up here. Sorry.
Oh, no, no, you're fine. But, you know, think about a wife today with her husband traveling over 300 days a year. She's got 7 kids. She has no driver's license. I asked my mom,
Wow.
how did we get food, because we were little? And she said, well, the neighbors would take her when we were at school. They would take her to
Wow.
the grocery store, and she couldn't drive. We walked everywhere to school, or rode our bicycles, or rode the bus. But my mom really, if you think about the success of my dad, if she did not support him 100%, there was no way he could have been successful. If she said, "Hey, you got to come off the road. You can't do this," but she never did. So,
That's insane, man.
yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, what your parents did. I go back to, there is a theme to all of these books, y'all. So like The Giver, right? Then right there, it's kind of the way this is laid out here is kind of cool actually. Giant Success was the first book,
Mhm.
but it's almost like, if you're a giver and you have a giving heart, you can experience giant success. And I think that that's so important, that people just don't realize what they're missing out on in life by not being a giver, by not having a giving heart. And so these books that you're writing with Mark Victor Hansen, although they're based in reality, they're fiction books with
Mhm.
fictional characters, but they're, it's based in reality.
Yeah, and let me can I share one more? That's going to be in this book.
Please,
It's a,
dude, share as many as you
it's
want.
it's a really great story. So, growing up, my dad's older brother was not very nice. He was not only not nice to my dad, but he was kind of a bully to a lot of people. He was just not a nice person. He was very abusive to my dad, physically, verbally, mentally. He was really cruel. And growing up, my dad would tell me these stories about my uncle.
Mm,
And I was like, man, this guy, he was just mean, just a mean person. And later on in life, my this uncle of mine, he developed MS, and he ended up losing his ability to walk and talk, and he went into a care center. And I just never saw my uncle very much. And when my dad was about 55 years old, my mom and dad decided to serve a church mission over in Germany. And one day my dad walks into my office, and says, I want you to go somewhere with me. I have an assignment for you. I have something for you to do. So he
mm,
walks into my office and he says, come with me to Provo. I've got something that I want you to do. And I said, okay. He didn't say where we were going. So we got in his car. He drove over, and he had a little brown paper sack, one of those little lunch that, that people would
yep.
have a sandwich. And he
Yeah.
was carrying something in this, it was small, in this brown paper bag. And we walk into this care center in Provo. And I'm like, what are we doing here? We walk in, go check into the front desk, and we walk in, and there's my uncle sitting there in a wheelchair. And it was probably 9 in the morning. So he was up. Now picture this, okay? Remember the story that I just told you of him being so cruel to
Yep.
my dad and just being so mean. And
Yeah.
one thing that I share in this book is how forgiving and how caring my dad is. We walk into this room, and my dad is like, says his brother's real name. We'll just say it's Randy. And so he says, hi, Randy, how are you doing? Are you having a good day? And my dad is like super upbeat, and he opens the bag, and he's got a Diet Coke in there. And he gives it to my uncle. He knows he loves Diet Coke. He's diabetic too. He's not supposed to have it. My dad sneaks a little can of Diet Coke in.
Wow.
And my uncle drinks this in about 15 seconds. He just inhales it with a straw. My dad
Wow.
puts the straw in there for him. And then, Ken, this is what the amazing part that my dad does. My dad wheels him over to the little sink there in his room. He washes and dries his hair. He washes his face. He combs his hair. And the entire time he's doing this, he's telling him, Randy, you are such a good looking guy. You are so handsome. I love you so much.
Wow.
Keep this in mind. This is the guy
Wow.
that was so cruel to him growing up. Then he takes out his shaving cream, and lathers his face up and shaves him and brushes his teeth. The whole time he's telling him, I love you so much. You're such a good brother. You're such a handsome guy. And my uncle's kind of, smiling and laughing. He can't really talk. And I was blown away. I was just sitting there saying, I can't believe my dad is doing this for his brother after he was so cruel to him growing up.
Wow.
I was just stunned, silent.
Yeah.
Get back in the car. And as we're driving, my dad says, I do this every day for him.
Oh my God.
And he says, I want you. At that time, I was traveling for the company too. He said, I'm giving you an assignment. When you are here, I want you to go do this every day. Do this, what I did. And
Wow.
I'm telling you, at first it was hard for me because I knew how he had treated my dad. And the first couple of times I was like, man, this is really hard because I know he was mean to my father, right?
Yeah.
But after I started doing it
Wow.
day after day,
Dude.
I I developed a love for my uncle, right? Because
Wow.
I saw what my dad did, and it was incredible.
Wow.
I just he was such a good guy, my dad. And so after this, and he was gone for a year, and he came back, and he kept doing it, but it changed me as a person. It changed my heart, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it because I thought, you're not very nice, but it softened my heart too. And serving him and doing this for him, I was just blown away by my dad. He was just incredible.
See, that's what that's, it's the, I don't even know how to put it in words, Doug. Like, just having that ability. I think, if we get biblical for just a second, I don't want to get into preaching mode, neither one of us, but I think that it's literally what Jesus taught. Like, like
Hmm.
before you point out the splinter in your brother's eye, remove the plank from your own, like.
Yep.
And I was talking about this the other day, like, to somebody, I forget who, but I said, the Lord's Prayer says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who've trespassed against us. It doesn't say, forgive us our trespasses and then we'll forgive. It's as we. It means in
Yep.
the same fashion that we forgive others, forgive us,
Yeah.
right? So most people are screwed because they're not forgiven. Like, you got to
Yeah.
forgive the way that you want to be forgiven.
Yeah. I mean, there's another real quick story. I mean, when my dad first started the company, we, I would say one of the first 10 distributors that my dad ever came on and started selling Little Giant
I know
Ladders
this
in the
story.
Bay
It's
Area.
awesome.
Yeah. And hey, there's Jose. But so this company in San Francisco started selling our ladders, and maybe 4 or 5 years later, another company came out with a cheaper ladder that was kind of a knockoff of it.
Yeah.
And this guy that owned this ladder company in the Bay Area, he stopped selling our ladders and went with that cheaper ladder out of China.
Yeah.
And my dad found out about it, and he was a competitor. Halloween was a competitor, make no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And he said, I got a phone call from your dad one day, and he goes, Phil, I understand you're selling, that Chinese ladder, and you're not selling our ladders anymore. And he said, yeah, Hal, that's right. And he said, well, I just want you to know, Phil, I'm going to squash you like a bug.
Right.
And he said, your dad went to every show I went to and competed with me. And he goes, and he squashed me out of business. And he goes, I was sitting in my office one day out of business. Your dad just destroyed me. And he goes, I had a thought, you know, call Hal and see if he'll take you back. And he says, I dialed the number. It took me, a few minutes for the secretary to get your dad on the phone. And he goes, your dad comes on the phone and he goes, hey, Phil, how you doing? And he goes, Hal, you squashed me just like you said you would. You squashed me like a bug. Can I have my job back? Can I sell your ladders again? And he said, without hesitation, not mentioning one thing, not mentioning ever, hey, why'd you do that, you dummy? He said, "Your dad said, 'Welcome back, Phil.'" And he goes, "I heard a click." And he said, "Your dad just hung up on me and said, 'Welcome back, Phil.'" And he goes, and then he goes, "For the rest of my career, I sold Little Giants." He said, "Your dad never, ever brought that up one time." And he just said, "I was back." So he had this. Howling was a forgiving guy, right? Competitor, but forgiving. Yeah, for sure. I don't
I'm
know.
sorry, I was muted. How
Oh,
in the world do you do that? I don't I don't get I mean,
yeah,
gee.
he's just such a forgiving is part of his who he was, but competitor, but forgiving right on the spot. There's other stories of just incredible things he did for his employees. I mean, there's one gentleman that his wife had a stroke. She was young. She had a stroke and almost died. And my dad literally went into his office and said, "Go home, take care of your wife, and when your wife is better, come back to work. You will have your job and you will not miss a paycheck. I'm going to pay you as if you were working for me." And he got paid for a year. And then when he came back, his job was still there. I mean, how many employers do you know that do stuff like that?
Dude, not many.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't okay, I don't know of any, I'm sure they exist, but your dad is the only one that I can think of. It's
Well,
crazy.
the other day I was listening to it was on social media from Dave Ramsey, and he does a lot of the same things. He talked about that where a couple of his
Mhm.
employees have had their wives or their kids had cancer or whatever, and he's like, "Don't come back to work until they're healed," and he pays them for the whole time. So there are a few people doing it, but it's incredible. And
Yeah.
that's why Hal Wing was so famous. I mean, and so not I'm not saying famous. Saying was so successful was because he took care of his people, and I'm telling you, his people worked like dogs for him because
Yeah.
they knew how much he loved and cared about them, and because how he showed it, right? I mean,
Yep.
he showed them, and he loved his
And
people.
there's a picture of Hal Wing right there. I'm gonna blow this up a little bit.
Yeah,
That's a picture of your dad right there.
yeah. One of the people that I interviewed for Giant Success in this book says, "I knew that your dad loved me. And because he loved me," he said, "I did not want to disappoint him. So I worked extra hard for him."
It's
So yeah,
incredible, dude.
pretty cool. But these are all great stories. They're just wonderful stories that people can. We need good news today. We need good reads. We need good books. We need good stories.
Yes.
These stories are real, but again, they're fictional characters. But they're real stories from my life, and they will help people to have hope in the
Yeah.
world that we live in today. So
Well, like you just said, we need hope, man. This world needs hope. It's filled with so much crap. I
yeah,
don't know how else to put it. It's just filled with so much junk that we need hope. We need stories of hope and helping and giving. Honestly, one of the I don't know if you watched my show this morning or not, but I had and it's just one of those things, and I'm not saying this to brag. I promise you give a heck of a lot more than I'm able to give. But that I think that's why God hasn't said, okay, I'm gonna is because he knows I'd probably give most of it away. But I think that Jill and I were walking into a restaurant here, and there's this these people standing at this table collecting donations to help children, right? And
mhm,
so I'm like, oh, I did that a year ago at this other, and blah blah blah, and paid the monthly for a year or so, and then we ate and we came out, and one of them was not there anymore. And I said, "Where'd your partner go?" And she's like, "Oh, he hit his goal for the night, so he got to go home." And I go, "Okay, and what do you have to hit to get yours?" And she said, "Like, I need another $200." And I just looked at Jill and I said, "Well, give her the $200 so she can go home." And so Jill did it, right? And she gave her the $200, and and then like 3 days later, dude, I get a phone call from Mark Victor Hansen,
Mhm.
your publisher, and says, Ken, my boy, I want you to have my friend Sarah O'Meara on your show. And I said, okay, I'll have her on. And who is she and what's she do? And he goes, so the table we had stopped at is called childhelp.org, right? They help abused children all over the US, and it's an amazing organization. He said, she's the co-founder of childhelp.org. I
Oh,
was
wow.
like, what? What, are you serious right now, dude? I could not believe what he had just said about who he wanted to have on. And so, that's the point, is when you never know, man, when you're open to doing the stuff you're talking about, Doug, and the stuff that your dad did, and when you just are open and you listen to God and you follow his commands and do, man, magic occurs in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hal Wing was a people builder, and he gave a lot of money to people, but he also gave his time. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people don't know this, and this is going to be in the new book too. Is that, I mean, here now, just picture Hal Wing, right? A successful businessman, and we talked about his love of vehicles and things like that. But one of the cool things about my dad was that he would. I don't know if you knew. I think you knew that he made a CD can of singing. I don't know if I told you this or not, but he learned how to yodel in Germany, and so he could sing in German, and he could yodel, and he knew how to play the harmonica and the trumpet and the piano. And so
Wow.
he used to go around to these care centers. Now, just picture my dad getting dressed up is in German lederhosen. Those little they have like the straps on them. Like if you go watch Sound of Music, the boys they were wearing those. Okay, with the straps on
Wow.
and those
Okay.
pants and then long
Yeah.
socks. Okay, those are called lederhosen. And my
Wow.
dad would wear one of those like fedora looking hats with a big
Yeah.
feather sticking out of it.
Yeah.
And he would go to these care centers. A lot of them were like Alzheimer's people that had no idea what was going on. And my dad would perform for like an hour, hour and a half, and sing and yodel and play these instruments. He did this quite often, and people did not, he never told people about it, but he would go around and do this. And so he was also generous with his time and sharing his talents with other people too, and making people smile. And you could imagine these people that were in these facilities would be clapping and singing and dancing, and he did that quite often. So he was good with his time as well. And we talked about my uncle and visiting him and
It's
people in the
crazy.
hospital. He was just always in the right place at the right time. So
And always, like you, and people that don't know you don't know this about you, but I know you and I know this about you. Always willing to help and help others, and you do that with your time. I know you do a lot to help the younger people in your church, and all the stuff you do, man. And I think that that's why, um I'm going to put this up on the screen. That's why everybody should definitely go pick up a copy of Giant Success and The Giver, and go. I'll put a banner up here in a minute, but go to dougwing.com and click on the I'll have to look, see what it is. I think there's a oh no, it's not on there.
it's
I'll
on Giant,
find
it's on
I'll
Giant Success, I think.
is get notified thing, Giant.
It could. I know that somebody has been redoing all my websites.
Yeah, my
I
my
think
wife.
I think you know who it is, but
Yeah, my wife's redo. So she's finishing up Doug Wing. I know she's got a little bit more to do to finish that up. It's such a big site. But if anybody watching, just make sure that you follow me and follow Doug on all social media platforms. So when the book is launched, Giving Hearts is launched, we can notify you and let you know that it's been launched. But these I'm telling you, when you look at the entire story of Hal Wing's life and the impact it's had on your life and the impact you've had on others, including mine and my families. I mean, dude, you've helped me and my family. I don't even know how many times. It's just you're just incredible, man. And you know, it's almost like God speaks to you because you're like you'll call me up and go, "Hey, I was thinking about maybe needing another website to do this or this," and it's like, wow, your timing is impeccable, man, because we could use another website deal right now or whatever, you know. But you know, I think that anybody watching, if you would go grab a copy of these books, you'll see they are literally life altering books. They really are.
Yeah, giant success can help anybody. I mean, if you own a business, if you're, I mean, I give a lot of those books to students as when I go and speak at schools. There's just so many good things that you could learn from giant success. Just, I mean, how it just, this book tells you how Hal did it. And really, people are like, most of the time, people are like, okay, you just got to work like a dog, and those types of things. Maybe just don't be nice to people or be ruthless in business, but that's not how Hal did it. I mean, he seriously, he built people. He really built people. He helped people. He built people, and then the people just helped him build the company. I mean, my dad hired a lot of people that nobody else would hire. People that came out of prison, people that were down on their luck, and he took chances on a lot of people, and then he built them and helped them in the right position. I always tell people that my dad had this unique gift of seeing people not in their current state, but he could see what their potential was. This is a gift, I think, where he could see this person and then he would help them achieve and turn into the person that they could become to really grow. And he was so good at that. And he would give, a lot of times people just need confidence, and someone behind them to
Yeah,
help them, and a little bit of encouragement. And Hal he was great that way. My dad was just incredible that way. And he really could see the potential in people. And then he mentored them. He helped them grow. And
yeah.
I was thinking about this today. I think I told you this before, but I never heard my mom or dad ever swear and ever
Wow.
say, something bad about anyone. They were so good. They were just so good that way. They were just so positive. And I look at how people are today. I mean, not everybody, but there's a lot of contention and divisiveness in the world today.
Yeah,
And just what's in it for me type of an attitude, right?
yeah.
And so these books are really refreshing, and teach people that you can really help people and you can still be successful. And
Yep, it's
my dad,
true.
my dad would always say, the things that we have, the things that he had, the money, the houses, the cars, not going to take them with you. And he really did use a lot of his means to help people and bless people, and
Amen.
that was what he did. So
It's true. So listen, I want everybody watching to go seriously, go grab a copy if you want. I mean, if you I understand if it's not your thing, but Giant Success, and it's available on it's available on Kindle, hardback, paperback, and Audible, right? You read the book.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that was a lot of work, but
yeah, I know, I
a lot
know.
of
And then
people,
you did The
man,
Giver. Go get a copy of The Giver. Get a copy of Giving Hearts when it comes out, and follow me and follow Doug. And if you want more information, let me put a banner up so everybody can see this. Doug's website is um, let's see, www.dougwing.com is probably the best way to, if you wanted to get a hold of Doug or hire him to do a speaking engagement or any number of things, you can reach out to Doug there and and yeah, I mean, this is going to be a great book. I'm excited about it, man. Really excited about it.
yeah, I told you before, they take, I mean, the first two books I wrote, and I was single and I had more time, and now
Yeah.
I'm married now, and it took me a little while to get this one done, but I don't know how many more I'm going to do, but there might be another one or two in me. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
um, some even you've even told me, and a couple other people have said, now you should write one about your life.
Yeah.
So that
You should.
that may happen, but
That
we'll.
needs to happen. I am blown, dude. I'm also blown away by all of the people on X who are watching. We have 371 people watching right now live on X.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for.
It's unbelievable. So thank you to I'll shout out a couple of my friends, Auntie Kami and Lolo. I'm sure they've shared this out, and Ashley and other friends of mine on there. Thank you all for sharing this out, and thank you all for watching and being a part of this broadcast tonight. Doug is, you know, I have clients who are friends, but Doug has been a first. We became friends before you were ever a client, but you are one of the most incredible people in my life, and I'm very grateful for you, brother. I really am. I'm so thankful for you and everything you do.
Well, that's kind of you, Ken. You and your wife are so nice and good, and your mother-in-law, she's great too. And I haven't met your mother yet, but I do play words with friends with her.
I know, it's unbelievable.
But your
Like,
mother,
I couldn't even believe you told me that one night. Doug's like, "Do you know I play Words with Friends on with your mom?" And I'm like, "No, you don't." And he's like, "Yes, I do." And she beats me all the time.
I think I've won one game with her, and
Oh
we
my
we
gosh,
currently we usually have 4 or 5 games open at a time, and she just smokes me every time. She's good.
that's funny. That's so funny, man. Well, Doug, I'm going to end the live stream, but thank you, dude, for coming on tonight. And everybody, make sure you're following me. Follow Doug. What's your handle on the X? Is it Real Doug Wing?
Uh, Let me hang on a second. We got time?
Yeah, go ahead. I can look too.
Um,
Um,
yeah, that it could be that. Let me see. I know I needed. It's no. It just has my name. It just says Douglas Sarwing.
oh,
That's my name, and then it says. I'm sorry, I'm not very tech savvy. At Wing Doug.
oh,
At
is it? Oh, it's at Wing Doug.
Yeah,
Yeah, at Wing Doug.
I'm the wrong guy to
Um,
ask about some of this stuff, Ken.
sorry, yeah, I just found you on here. It's at Wing Doug. Make sure you follow Doug. Um, you know, plus you'll get to see his car collections. Sick. I mean, sick. It's so cool. So,
It's a
Doug
lot.
doesn't like to brag. I like to brag. I like to brag about Doug's cars as if they're mine, and
It's
they're
a lot
not.
smaller than my father's. I don't know how he did it. I mean, he had people help him. I mean, that's just yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is, but still, it's an impressive collection of amazing, like the Ford GT you have, and a lot of amazing vehicles, man. So, but everybody watching, make sure you follow Doug. And we're going to be doing some more live streams talking about giving hearts as it inches closer to the launch date, which is March the 5th, right? 5th.
5, Halloween's
Um,
birthday. Yep.
yeah, Hal Wing's birthday. Yeah, it's amazing.
And if people want to go to halwing.com, they can learn more about Hal too as well. There's
Yeah.
some cool pictures there from Little Giant and the building,
Yeah.
and some early photos of my dad selling ladders, building ladders. There's even there's some cool pictures there.
I'm going to put that in the scroller here or, um,
And it's linked if you go to dougwing.com or giantsuccess.com, at the bottom it has all the other different websites. So
yeah. And who did that website also? Was it? Oh, that's right. It was us, my wife. It's amazing. I'm so grateful for you, dude. So go check it out. Go to giantsuccess.com. You can check out that. There's a lot of information there as well. So go follow Doug. Make sure you're following him everywhere if y'all would. And be ready for this new book coming out and go get a copy of his current books because they are absolutely phenomenal. So Doug, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. I'm going to wrap this up now, and we will see everybody very, very soon. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we end this, brother?
Well, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope everyone has a great time with their family. Be careful driving. There's going to be millions of people on the road. And
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and I'm so grateful to all of you who shared this out too. So thank you, and Doug, stay with me. I'm going to end this, but stay with me, and we'll chat here for a minute. But everybody have a wonderful night, and we will see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.